As DK approaches the wall, one he destroyed time and time again, he stopped for a moment to ask himself, why? The underground is full of beautiful landscapes that he'd leveled to the ground many times over. Maybe it was time for a change. DK set out to preserve this natural beauty by destroying as little terrain as possible while beating Donkey Kong Bananza. Ingot Isle posed quite the threat to our furry friend, as he's tasked with punching through walls from the get-go. There's no real way around this fact, outside of bashing his head against the wall for hours on end, hoping for that one fateful clip. Ultimately, the ape gives in to his urges, smashing the wall, but just enough for his primate body to stroll on through. This defeat was his first of many, but he wouldn't let that bear down on his new outlook. The monkey trudged forward. These walls, intended to be broken with die punch buttons, appealed to his nature, begging for excessive destruction, but our protagonist refused. He burrowed through dirt and stone before finding his way to a large cluster of bananas. The only weakness, DK couldn't keep at bay. But that's okay! He discovered that bananas and the subsequent explosions they cause do not actually destroy terrain, meaning he's free to ingest as much potassium as his little heart desires. After seeing his city sunken into the ground, he leapt with anticipation of how he could help. Well, actually leapt is a figure of speech in this instance. Following carefully scaling down several walls, he frees the odd rock from these creepy crawlies and heads back towards town. A little suspicious how this mound of dirt clung to the side of the wall here, but DK shrugs it off and just climbs over it. And as fun as that barrel looks, doesn't this one look 10 times as fun? And that one even leads right to where DK needs to go, to the typical speedrun path up to this other barrel. But he recalled a significant amount of damage the last time he took that barrel. So after searching for a way around, this hunk of metal is conveniently tall enough for DK to jump and then climb up the side and into the mini boss. Our monkey lost his cool at the sight of the croc and destroyed his outer shell, but with the final punch, he used his head and led the enemy into the void stake, causing minimal destruction on impact. DK munches on a banana bundle before setting his sights on the lush landscape of Lagoon Layer. It's here where he realizes the odds are rigged against him, tallying 61 cubic meters on landing alone. And for some reason, he is occasionally hit with grass destruction simply from walking. But this made him even more focused on his ultimate goal: destroy as little as possible, and as a side goal, score 0 smash and stats bonuses. His first large obstacle is this gap. He snags some boom rock and glides over the gap with the grace of, I don't know, some sort of bird or something. To reach the ancient record, he scales the shipping crates and... ooh, that's a bit of a tough landing. 4 out of 10. Pauline's here now, and the Elder clearly wants the Kong to smash and smash and smash. But our hero was torn. His new lifestyle prohibited this type of behavior, but the Elder needs him to reach the void stake. What could he possibly do to avoid all that destruction? Oh, perfect. It was at this moment, before he took on the first boss of the journey, that he remembered a massive roadblock that would face him. In the very next layer, there's a required 3,000 gold payment to proceed forward. And yeah, DK is low-key broke right now. The big problem with needing a lot of gold is that there's pretty much only one way to collect it. You guessed it. But this led him to a theory. Much like his little monkey brain, Lagoon Layer's bonus stage is located in this dude's head. These stages are basically just showering DK with cash, but he does still need to smash it. However, since it's in a sub-area, the question is, will it actually count against our boy? Nice. Unfortunately, Pika Bruiser does require a decent amount of destruction. After one more trip to the bonus stage, DK's bank account was stuffed just enough to move on. The sweeping hills of Hilltop Layer are extremely easy to traverse, meaning DK swiftly advances through them without issue, and after paying up, in just a few minutes he moves on. After somehow destroying 22 cubic meters of water? After making his way up, down, and around, DK is able to access the minecart without leaving a trace. He's not particularly good at these speedrun techniques. Donkey Kong, to clarify, this has nothing to do with anyone else's skill level at all. It's just all on DK here, I promise. But after exploring a bit, this jump seemed more than possible. That's gotta be a 10 out of 10 landing. Following the scenic route allows him to continue climbing the smokestack, and with a little practice, he clears this jump with just a small chunk of damage done. Surprisingly, the fast strats for Stomp and Clomper actually do more destruction than just normally fighting the boss, even though you skip destroying the feat. So DK just does the fight normally. An extremely successful path through Canyon Layer, avoiding 2 bosses and a very low meter count if you remove the boss. This one is quick. A couple of punches of switcheroo goo and a chunk or 2 of grass for jumps is all it takes for DK to make his way down the forest path. After a fairly simple jump into the Eggshell Motel, the ape retrieves both ancient record pieces to unlock Ostrich Bonanza, allowing him to traverse down to the next sublayer. Some fun platforming drops the poison layer as our protagonist continues downward. This next sublayer is home to Abracadabra, whose fight is normally accessed through a lot of thorn destruction. But to minimize this required demolition, DK charges up a punch to create this underpass, leading right to it. The boss is no real match for our winged warrior, thwarting the forest witch with ease. Typically at this point, DK would be forced to warp back to the Divide and head for Freezer Layer, but he's got other plans. Knowing he'd need a chunk of terrain to make this large gap jump, DK had a better plot brewing. By simply climbing this gold onto the floating platform, he can now glide across to the other Terravoider, fully opening up the first Void fight. This is where he must revisit Lagoon Layer and Hilltop in order to take down Void. With his blood boiling over the sheer destruction that Void has brought to the underground, DK uses his fist with all his might, not once, not twice, but 3 times to rid the underground of the pesky primate for now. Stopping in for a vacation simply wasn't on the monkey's mind. He was on a mission. But at Resort Layer, he faced the largest obstacle yet. Literally, by sheer size, this definitely qualifies. DK is aware from his prior excursions that this dive punch button will cause an insane amount of destruction, sending melon chunks everywhere. He probably still has some of the fruit stuck in his fur from last time. Digging down from the top will certainly cut down on unwanted mess left in his wake, but there was one more approach that he saw fit for this journey. DK would glide in from the side. This cuts down not only green and white rind, but even melon itself, causing just a few lines of wrecked rind behind as he destroys the void. As DK enters the weather wonderland, he quickly makes his way down to unlock the first Blusterwing fight, but he doesn't engage with the bird quite yet. He ran around for quite a bit. One might say he was brainstorming. This is when he came up with an interesting idea. Turns out he was allowed to bring projectiles into the fight, lessening the destruction needed to move forward. With a newfound pep in his step, DK quickly riled up all 3 record pieces, unlocking his elephant form. But in most cases for his current lifestyle, this is the least useful Bananza form. Sucking in terrain does count as destruction, so he would need to limit his trunk as much as possible, and that includes in his current quest, obtaining this key. Normally, it was simple. He'd whip out his trusty snout and carve a path to the tornado, but he needed to resist that easy way forward. Needing to get quite close in order for his vacuum to grab hold of the key, things were looking dire. But he explored for a bit, and after landing near this sub-area, he gave it a go. Bingo. That slight detour out of the way led him to make his way down to the next sub-layer. But not before bringing some ammo along. But, yeah, that ammo would clip straight through the floor, so... After reporting some fraudulent charges made to his Smash and Stats account, DK continued into the final area in Tempest, which was sure to be the toughest one yet. These ziplines would slowly melt any obsidian that slides across it, meaning he'd need to avoid these things as much as he could, which is where the ostrich transformation comes in quite clutch. But after so much gliding, it became clear what his biggest hurdle would be: Bananergy. The meter fills based on the amount of gold collected, and with no smashing comes almost no gold. Sadly, against his wishes, DK was forced to throw a punch and suck up some lift-off ore before heading into a fairly normal final Blusterwing. A grueling layer, but he had finally made it through. DK would have to learn some brand new strats on his next trip, this time to Landfill. He's fully aware of the speedrun clip and would make several poor attempts before finally hitting the right angle. A few punches later, he'd find himself vacuuming up some dirt and taking down Pika Bruiser yet again. His visit to Racing Layer is extremely short-lived. He simply glides through the area, snags some rainbow, and floats to the top of the trophy. The layer gets off to a tough start, requiring force to obtain the key at the beginning. But once through to the next sublayer, things ease up a bit on our protagonist. He dives down to grab piece 1 of the record, and using the extremely easy to obtain second piece, he sneaks through the dark tunnel with the glowing piece as his guide. A small amount of destruction is required throughout, but that's a small price to pay for yet another record piece. DK once again grabs the extra slice of the record, takes the zipline across to claim another piece, and then puts them all together back at the Elder's Courtyard. The solar control tower was mostly a breeze. He just took a breather halfway through in order to refill his Bananergy. DK then grabs 2 balls of glowstone, using one to knock out the Crocoid who was guarding the light switch. From here, Radiance was smooth sailing. A small amount of terrain destruction allowed our dynamic duo to take down Grumpy Kong. Now locked up, DK had plenty of time on his hands, and boy did he put that time to good use. Instead of sitting around twiddling his thumbs, he got to work, learning not just 1 speedrun clip, but 3. The first comes during this initial escape. Clipping through this wall using a chunk of sand saves a ton of time and terrain, but in completing this hack, he ran into a literal minefield of issues. But as it turns out, any terrain destroyed by an explosive that's not thrown by DK doesn't add to his running tally, meaning his path is nearly clear to advance into the second section of groove. But as mentioned, he had taken the time to learn yet another clip, and this one was even more useful than the last. Using Fractonium, DK is able to clip directly into the melody path, meaning he'd need to complete only this path to exit groove. After a few attempts, he was through. The journey back to the disco hall still left plenty of destruction in his wake, but the clip officially saved 2/3 of the typical required sand sculpting. If you were wondering where the third mentioned speedrun clip came into play, well, here it is. Clipping through this wall and timing a roll into a glide would skip the entire top sublayer of Feast. But this clip is very, very difficult. DK sadly came to the realization that he simply wasn't built for this. Again, DK specifically, this is no one else's fault. It has nothing to do with anyone else's skill level. He took a miserable stroll through the layer, hitting burger switches along the way until he came upon a familiar foe, Mad Mixer. Dreading the sheer number of meters he'd be launching explosives at, DK sat in the minecart, determined to at least avoid melting any muck. With a smart work his way up strategy with the bombs, the damage had been done. But for some reason, the Mad Mixer doesn't count for any smash and stats at all, meaning the clip didn't even matter. He destroyed essentially nothing in the entire top layer of Feast, even after failing the clip. However, he wouldn't find the same luck in Cat Scratch Kitchen, home of Muckety Muck. Unfortunately, this boss does count for stats of both Muck Destroyed and Salt, which is used to destroy the Muck, inflating Feast's numbers by just a ridiculous amount. Punching a small hole in the wall reveals the vast expanse of Forbidden to our ape. The travel to Go No Further Gate was free of charge, gliding through the open air all the way to this large blockade. Despite his best efforts, DK is unable to find a way under, around, or through this giant wall without bringing out the big guns. This, of course, leads into the final void fight. Nothing is really different here from a normal fight. Some sand, fractonium, and mud are the casualties on DK's way to defeating the Kong for good. Necky Skyway and Claptrap Crossing were simple, but Critter Crevice was a different beast. With no real conceivable way through the area without destroying a ton of vine, DK thought for a moment. He looked around for any openings, but then he thought of something. Why go down when he can go up? It was not pretty, but hey, it's effective. After a brief stop at Kremlin Camp, the monkey heads into the arena to take on Stomp and Clomper for the last time. And this time around, he brought in a new strategy. A good amount of the damage back when they fought in Canyon Layer was done when the Stomper fell to the ground, creating a crater of destruction. But if all of the arena floor was destroyed without DK's intervention, yeah, this was gonna take a while. But it saved a ton of smash and stats at the end of the day. Some careful platforming on the outer wall of Kremlin Quagmire cut down on any required smashing. But then came one final massive test of patience and precision. Kremlin Coliseum. This is a massive gauntlet of enemies seen throughout Bananza, starting with kabooms. With the entire floor and most of the surroundings being made of smashable terrain, this was gonna take some outside of the box thinking. Or should I say outside of the arena? By luring the kabooms over to this platform, DK can safely knock them off the edge with a stone and watch as the spikes below do the rest. But not every enemy would be this easy. Next, he faced a few stone crocoids. Using the same tactic, DK lures them to the edge, but this time he fools the toothless and useless foes into charging off the edge after him, resulting in their demise. 3 Neckies follow, and it's rinse and repeat, this time using the stone piece used against the kabooms for one bird and a couple of chunks of sand for the others. The lava crocoids are just as gullible as their cousins, getting lured off the edge and into the spikes. Armadillos pose a much different threat, forcing DK to stay patient and let them destroy a decent amount of the floor before setting them up at the perfect angle to launch them off the side. And finally, there's the thorny concrete crocoids. While they're also easily lured over the edge by DK, unfortunately, that doesn't matter. Due to their strong exterior, the spikes can't penetrate the crumbling shells, meaning DK would finally have to deal some real damage. Forced to use explosive gold, he reluctantly grabs 3 chunks and aims. After shedding their rigid exteriors, it's 1, 2, 3 punches to finish them off, and at long last, also finish off the Colosseum. Meaning there's just one thing left to do. Take down the King of the Crocs. Taking advantage of these silly-looking speedrun strats combined with the simple avoidance of K-Rool's attacks, the fight is a breeze to complete with 0 destruction caused. And with no smash and stats tracked on the surface, DK's final destruction tally is 245,719 cubic meters. It's a lot more than he wanted, but a heck of a lot less than his normal amount. A lot of outside-the-box thinking and patience was required for this run by a monkey who's not typically known for restraint. Hey, maybe over the course of this challenge, he's learned a thing or two about self-control. Or not.